Can you explain why property taxes are so high in Texas compared to other states?
As you know, Texas does not have state income tax, so we're one of only a handful of states in the country that does not impose a tax on your income. The most important thing is making sure all the exemptions that you're eligible for are actually present on your appraisal district record. When it comes to the tax rates, tax rate would be the same regardless of if it's new construction or if it's a resale home. The best piece of advice I can give is just show up prepared, do your homework.
Are you guys ready to save some money on property taxes, or are you paying lots of property taxes all of a sudden? Yes, I know I have been getting pretty crazy high bills on my homes. And that being said, I wanted to know how I can save some money. So I'm going to be talking about property taxes, how you're going to save some money right here on this podcast with an expert who has done it for many, many years on helping families save lots of money. So let's go ahead and get started. How are you feeling, Max, today? Thank you for coming by and talking about property taxes.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to this discussion.
Yes,
Property tax is a big topic in Texas. Everyone's talking about it, especially this time of the year when appraisals are about to come out, right?
Yes,
Next month.
And getting started out, tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been doing property taxes?
Sure, yeah. So my background is actually in computer science. I've been a software developer for a decade and a half before starting this property tax protest business. And this year, 2025, is going to be the fourth season in the business. Now, I've done my own protests before starting a business for myself, friends, family, and then one thing led to another, and I decided to kind of start doing it full time.
That's wonderful. And you've helped many, many families that I know save lots of money. Now, tell me in Texas, when do they see in the mails come out? And when is the time to start doing the property protest?
Right. So the appraisals typically come out in the first couple of weeks of April. Some appraisal districts send them out very early, like first week of April. Some can be a little bit later, but mid-April. But typically, majority of appraisals come out by mid-April.
Okay, and then when do you suggest a person should start filing it or looking for a person, right, to help them out with property taxes?
So there's no specific time. The protest deadline is May 15th or 30 days from the date of notice. So that's the very end. But really, you can file it as soon as the appraisals come out, or you can wait until the last day. So as long as it's before that May 15th deadline, you're in good shape.
Perfect. Okay, I've got a bunch of questions here that I've gotten from my clients to ask you. So we're just going to get started.
Sure.
Can you explain why property taxes are so high in Texas compared to other states?
Sure. So that's a great question. So as you know, Texas does not have state income tax. So we're one of only a handful of states in the country that does not impose a tax on your income, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is a big part of revenue for other states that they can distribute to help pay for local services, right? In addition to sales taxes and property taxes, right? So a lot of states have all three revenue sources that then they can use to fund services and all the things that we like. Texas does not, so all of the local services that we rely on, cities, counties, police, fire department, all of those are funded by property taxes, right? And because Texas is a large state, population is pretty huge, local services do have pretty large budgets to meet the demands of the growing population. So that's really the main reason, is that no state income tax. Now, if you look at your property tax bill, the biggest line item on that tax bill is going to be the school district taxes, right?
Oh, okay.
Typically, it will be almost half of your tax bill is going to be the school district taxes, whether you're in Austin or in Houston, San Antonio, Dallas. School district is by far the biggest line item on that tax bill. Now, in some counties, utility districts, municipal utility districts can also have pretty high tax rates, so that can be an added expense. But by and large, school district is the biggest expense on your tax bill. Mm-hmm. Now, besides that, other reasons is like I said before, local services get all their funding from only the property tax. They don't get funded by the state, and they have to get that revenue from somewhere, and that comes from property owners, property taxes.
Yes.
Some other reasons why we pay high taxes is we do have homestead exemption and other exemptions that help with property taxes. We also have the homestead exemption cap that limits the assessed value increase to 10% year over year, but that's not as aggressive as in some other states in the country. They have higher limits that cap the taxable value increases. Now, here's the good news, right? Texas legislature is keenly aware that property tax burden is pretty high in Texas. Like last I checked, I think we were number 7 with the average tax rate among all the states. So they are trying to pass legislation to relieve some of that tax burden on homeowners. Like in 2023, when they were in session, they passed a huge property tax relief package, which included increasing the homestead exemption amount for school districts from $40,000 to $100,000. And also they decided to redistribute some of the state funding to pay for more of the public school education in lieu of the school districts lowering their tax rates and reducing that tax burden on property owners.
Yeah. And then again, tax different. It's different in all different parts, right? Where your subdivision, new construction might be different. It might change later on.
Right.
So when you're purchasing a property, you got to make sure what your taxes are going to be also.
Exactly.
So leading to the next one, what are the most common reason homeowners should consider protesting their property taxes?
Sure. So really there's 4 reasons why someone would want to do it. So number 1 is the market value of the property is over what they think the fair market value is, right? So if the property owners believe that or have evidence to support that, sales prices have declined, right, and are lower than their appraisal, that would be a market value over incorrect market value protest reason, and potentially could result in a good outcome. And actually before we continue, let's talk a little bit about what I mean by market value, right? In terminology. So market value is in appraisal district speak is what they think you could sell your house for on January 1 of the tax year. And we're going to keep coming back to January 1 because that's a key date in the appraisal cycle. Everything is based on that January 1st date. And other parts of that market value is it has to be an open market transaction, meaning you're not selling your property to your brother, your sister, your kids, your parents, grandparents, whatever. And it has to be on the market for sufficiently long enough time. It also cannot be a distress sale, right? Divorce or foreclosure, or someone just wants to offload the property because they're moving out of state, right? That would not be considered a true market transaction, right? So basically both the buyer and the seller have to be seeking to maximize their gains, right? So that's what market value is. The other reason why someone should protest their property value, their appraisal, is if it's unequal compared to other properties. Okay. Right? Unequal appraisal. Now, what I mean by unequal appraisal is you have to look at similar sized houses compared to yours. Like you can't take your 3,000 square foot house compared to a 2,000 or 4,000 square foot house.
And I feel like when they're doing it on their own, that's what probably might be another mistake that they might be making, right?
Yes, exactly. And looking at like the price per square foot.
Yes.
Now, some of the reasons that property owners should consider protesting is if they have a defect in their property. Maybe they need foundation repair that's going to cost, $20 or $30 or $40,000. The appraisal district might not be aware of that fact, and bringing a quote from a reputable foundation company can be an effective way to get their value reduced, right? Or, storm damage, hail damage, major repairs that need to be done to the property could be a good reason to protest the property value. And last but not least, if somebody bought a house in, the previous year, right? So now we're in 2025. If somebody closed on the house in 2024, first couple of months of 2025, and it's below the appraisal, that's another good reason to do the protest.
Wow.
So
Okay.
those four.
Those four. So put them in the bullet point. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So market value, unequal appraisal, property condition, and recent purchase price.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, how does the property tax protest process work in Texas,
Sure.
start to finish?
Right. So it all begins again on that January 1 appraisal date,
Yes.
which is a snapshot in time what the appraisal district thinks you could sell your house for on January 1 of a given tax year. Once the appraisal district does their analysis and figures out what your value should be, they send out appraisal notices in the first couple of weeks of April. Usually some can go as late as end of April, but bulk of appraisals come out in the first couple of weeks of April. And once that notice is mailed, it'll have a deadline to protest written on it. Typically, it's May 15th or 30 days from the date of notice, whichever is later.
Okay.
Right? So if the appraisal comes out in Williamson County on March 1st or March 31st, you have until May 15th to file it. If appraisal comes out, let's say end of April for whatever reason, complex property or some other reasons, then you have until May 30th to file the protest. So 30 days.
30 days. Okay.
Once that protest is filed, the appraisal notice is going to receive that notice. Of course, they get a bunch of protests. Some counties, well over 100,000 protests. So it might take them a while to process all these protests, but eventually they will schedule you for a hearing. Williamson County will send you a notice with your date and time for your hearing. It could be as early as, again, depending on when you file the protest, it could be as early as, early May, even before the protest deadline, if you're one of the first people to file, or it could be as late as July or even August or September, again, depending on how many protests are filed. Now, once you get that hearing date, you have to show up at the appraisal district on that date.
Okay.
And you will have an opportunity to meet with an appraiser informally. So it'd be, an informal discussion, just like kind of what we're having right now, where you will present your evidence. Could be a CMA, could be, bids from contractors, could be your closing documents for recent purchase, photographs, and you just kind of negotiate back and forth. And if you come to an agreement at that informal hearing, you can sign off and you're done. If you disagree with the appraiser, maybe they don't like your comparables, maybe they don't like your quotes, whatever the reason may be, you have the option to continue to the formal hearing, right? And different appraisal districts do it different ways. In Williamson, it's the same day. You meet with an appraiser informally for about 15, 20 minutes. After you're done, you go into the formal hearing if you choose to do so. And it happens the same day.
Oh, wow.
In Travis, it works a little bit different, where informal and formal hearings are on different dates. So with Travis, actually, the benefit that they give you is you can schedule when your informal hearing date is, if you want to, using their online portal. So it's a little bit more convenient, where if you can make an opening in your schedule, set up a date. A lot of them are done electronically now. You do it over Zoom or whatever conferencing solution they have. And again, if you disagree, then you go to a formal hearing. They'll send you a notice when to show up for the formal hearing. With Williamson, it happens the same day.
Wow.
And formal hearing, as the name suggests, it's a more formal proceeding where it's a panel of typically 3 citizens that they don't work for the appraisal district. They're independent citizens that hear evidence from property owners and the district, and then they make a final determination of value. So typically the way these formals are structured is you have, you can go first or last, depending on your preference. You present your evidence. The district presents their evidence. Then you get a rebuttal to their evidence. Then they get a rebuttal to your rebuttal. And then the appraisal review board decides on the value.
Okay.
So, but there's more. But wait, there's more. If you still disagree with the appraisal review board value, the second time, you can either file for binding arbitration, or you can file a lawsuit. Now, the first two, the informal and the formal hearing, those are free. It only costs you your time. If you go to binding arbitration, lawsuit, of course, is the most expensive. Binding arbitration, you have to put a deposit. And that's another option, another chance for you to argue your case.
And is this saying that somebody's doing it on their own, or they're hiring somebody to do that? It could be either or.
Yeah, the process is the same, regardless.
It's the same. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yep.
So why you want to do it by yourself? Hire somebody.
Exactly.
It's like a very stressful process.
Exactly.
And I don't know if you went over these with the process, but what are like the key documentations or evidence should homeowners prepare before filing? You said CMA.
Yeah.
What else?
So let's break it down into a couple of questions, right?
Yeah.
So to file, you don't really need any documentation. So the only thing you have to submit, the notice of protest, is you basically are telling the appraisal district that you don't agree with their valuation,
Yes.
right? So some appraisal districts have online portals that you can sign up with your email and property address. Sometimes they have a PIN number that you need on the appraisal notice to create an account. But you can do a lot of the stuff on that portal, right? You file the protest before the deadline, and that's pretty much it. You don't need anything else. If you don't want to do it online, there's a form, notice of protest, that a lot of appraisal districts have on their websites. It's also available from the controller's office that you fill out, and you either deliver it to their office in person and drop it off, or you send it by mail. If you send it by mail, of course, it has to be postmarked before the May 15th deadline. So that's really the only thing you need to get the process started.
Okay.
Now, the homework and the preparation begins after you do that, right? So the CMA, like I mentioned, could be a useful tool.
Oh, it could be after May 15th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So before May 15th, you only have to file the protest.
Okay.
And then whenever you have your hearing, that's when you need to start preparing for that.
Got it.
So for documentation, CMA can definitely be super helpful. Closing documents for recent purchases.
Yes.
Contractor bids and photographs could be another piece of documentation that can be helpful. And lastly, if you want to pursue that unequal appraisal, you have to kind of print out appraisals from your neighboring properties of similar size and bring those in with you.
I see. And the specific deadlines you just said was that May 15th was the main
May 15th,
important
the main one.
one.
Yes, that's the most important one.
And then you said, I don't know if you talked about what are the different ways to protest a property tax. You said mail, in person, and online.
Yeah, so for filing, those three, either online, drop off the form by in person or by mail. The hearings themselves, especially post-COVID, a lot of stuff has moved online. But again, depends on the appraisal district. Sometimes you can do it online conference for the informal and even the formal hearings, or you can show up in person. Or if you can't, like let's say you're maybe traveling or something, right? You're have other plans. You're not unable to show up for the hearing. You typically get one free reschedule. But it has to be done before the hearing takes place, right? Not after, right? If you miss the hearing, that's it. There is, you can still get it rescheduled, but only for good cause, right? Like hospitalization or something major like that.
Yeah.
But as a homeowner, you do get one free reschedule, but again, you have to request it, before the hearing takes place.
Wow. And so how often do you see property owners actually win their protest?
So it really varies a lot by county and within counties by the neighborhood that they're in, right? If we look at Travis and Hayes County, the success rate is pretty high. We're looking somewhere around 90%. So, and then, by the way, this is across both homeowners and agents, everybody.
Yeah.
The overall success rate is about 90%. So 9 out of 10 protests result in market value reduction.
That's high.
It's pretty high. In Williamson County, it's closer to about 50%. So about 1 out of every, 1 out of 2 would be successful.
That's still 1 out of 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's definitely still worth pursuing it. But again, it really depends a lot on the specific neighborhood. Some neighborhoods, there's just not a lot of data to support lower appraisals, right? Because the appraisals are already pretty low. So maybe, the success rate will be lower.
So knowing that, would hiring a professional, why hire a professional and not protest yourself?
So, the main thing is, just like you would want to hire a professional to, do something like, for example, why do a lot of home buyers or home sellers work with a realtor like yourself, right? They want that advocate on their side. They want somebody with years of experience doing that, the protests.
And it doesn't hurt, right? Because it helps you save money, right?
Yep.
You're not missing any important deadlines that you may not be aware, where a professional
exactly
is aware of all that. And as a professional, you guys have been doing it for many, many years. You kind of
Right?
know it
Inside and out.
inside and out.
Exactly.
And then you make money if it goes through, right?
Only, well, for that specifically, only if we're able to save our clients money. If not, then our services are completely free.
Yes.
And to go back to your earlier question about the success rates, again, if we look at a large enough sample of protests, having an agent significantly increases your chances of success. Again, because they
Exactly.
know ins and outs, they know the
Exactly.
process, they know the math, they've been doing this a while. So there is that consideration. So the fee that you end up paying the professional
Yeah.
will oftentimes more than cover the savings that you achieve
Yes.
as a homeowner.
Yep. Yep. And then you did say that what happens if the protest is denied? Can they appeal?
Yeah. So for denial, there could be multiple reasons for denial. If a property owner misses a protest filing deadline, it's pretty much, the train has left the station. There are some cases where it's possible to file a late protest, but the reasons for those are very specific. There's penalties involved. So the chances of that are pretty low, right?
Yeah.
Of getting that
Why
through.
go through that again if it's not?
Yeah, exactly. Now, if another reason for denial is you miss your hearing,
Yeah.
right? Again, if you can show good cause, they'll grant you another hearing date potentially. But if you're just on vacation or you couldn't get time off work, then you're out of luck. Then you're out of luck, right? And finally, if you disagree with the valuations, you have those three chances: the informal hearing, you don't like the outcome, go to the formal; don't like the outcome, go to the arbitration or file a lawsuit.
Oh gosh.
So a lot of chances, but also a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I wouldn't want to do a lot of work to do all that. So if somebody is thinking about hiring a professional, how does the fee structure, like for you, let's say?
So with us specifically, we work on a strict contingency basis, which is a percentage of tax savings. So if we save somebody $1,000, we'll take a cut of that $1,000. And if we're not successful for any reason, protest is unsuccessful, or if we're only able to reduce the market value but not the assessed value, which determines your property taxes, we don't charge a service fee.
Okay.
At all, right? So it's completely free. You get free service.
For you, from you guys, it could be different from somebody else.
Right. So, there's over 200 companies, and that's just in the Texas Triangle, right? The Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. There's over 200 companies, and the fee structures vary significantly. Some charge higher contingency fees, some charge lower contingency fees, some have minimum fees where even if they don't save you anything, they'll still charge you a nominal amount. Whatever it is. Some even charge you for market value reduction only if they're not, still not saving any money, but they're still charging for the market value reduction. So you really have to be careful about, what exactly what the fees are. And unfortunately, some agencies don't even publish those fees. So you have to call them or you have to fill out a form before they'll even tell you what they'll charge you, right?
Scary.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
With us, it's super transparent. It's on our website. It's in our contract. So, and we're pretty low compared to other agencies.
Okay, that's perfect. Another important thing is how can what are some strategies homeowners can use to keep their property taxes in check over time?
So I would say the most important thing is making sure all the exemptions that you're eligible for are actually present on your appraisal district record. So the most common one is the homestead exemption. So if a property is your primary residence, not a rental, you live in it, you can get a homestead exemption, which can save you, quite a bit of money. It also helps to limit the amount of assessed value increase year over year. So if we go back to 2022, when appraisals jumped by 40, 50, 60%, right? For homeowners who've owned their homes for a couple of years, they had huge benefit of that homestead exemption because it limited their assessed value increase to only 10% instead of the full 40, 50, 60%. Now, besides homestead, there's a lot of other exemptions. There's, if you have solar panels, you can get a solar exemption. There's also exemptions for disability, senior citizens over 65. There is veterans exemptions. So there's a lot of exemptions that you have to make sure that all of them are present. And what's changing now is that didn't used to be the case before, is every 5 years the appraisal districts are required to re-verify that you're still eligible for that homestead exemption.
Uh-huh.
So they'll send you some kind of letter saying, hey, can you confirm that this is still your homestead, and you might need to submit, maybe your driver's license or whatever documentation they're requesting. And if you don't, they'll remove it, and then you have to refile it and appeal it and whatever.
Yes.
So
make sure
exemptions.
Yes.
And the second thing is protest annually.
Yeah.
Right? To make sure that your property value is assessed at the actual market values and it's not overassessed. And we can definitely help with that, right? Sometimes, a lot of the times we are successful, but sometimes the appraisal is already at or below that true market value. And so, but again, you wouldn't know unless you went through the protest.
Curious question. What is the biggest savings you've seen?
It could be $10,000 potentially. Now that's, for expensive multi-million-dollar properties. Sort of average tax savings. Again, it really varies by county. In Williamson, somewhere maybe around a few $100s. Travis, we're looking 1,000 to 2,000. Hayes, similar. So, but again, depends on the appraisal and the value.
The value. Yep. Okay, so leaning towards new construction. Does new construction affect property tax rate differently than a resale?
So when it comes to the tax rates, the tax rate would be the same, regardless of if it's new construction or if it's a resale home. Now, an important key difference that I think homeowners should be prepared for is the value on which they pay property taxes can vary significantly during construction process from one year to the next.
Yeah.
So to give an example, let's say somebody walks into a builder. Right now we're in March. They sign a contract. They pick a lot that was empty on January 1, again, the January 1 appraisal date. The builder goes in, builds the house. They close in November or December. They'll still pay taxes in 2025 based on the value of the lot only, right? So the property taxes will be very minimal, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's $50,000 lot or $100,000 times the tax rate, so it'll be pretty minimal. Next year, right, the appraisal district will know that this house was finished.
Yes.
So there could be a bit of a sticker shock the following year where your value is going to jump, appraisal is going to jump, and your tax bill is going to be significantly more, right? And that can vary significantly, right? If the house was only partially built on January 1, it'll be appraised at 50% or 40%. And again, it could be that significant jump. So that's when it could be a big gotcha.
That's what you got to know. How much are you going to be paying before you go purchase a house?
Exactly.
And what advice would you give to homeowners protesting for the first time?
So I think the best piece of advice I can give is just show up prepared, right? Do your homework. Don't show up empty-handed, just saying, "Hey, it's unfair. I don't want to pay so much taxes," right? That's not gonna help. That's not gonna help, right? So ask for a CMA, get a CMA. Bring those contractor bids. Do a little bit of research on understand the process, right? Don't miss deadlines. File your protest timely, show up for the hearing. Appraisal district website has a lot of resources on what their procedures are, how to file the protest. You can even call them and say, hey, can you help me, fill out this form? And they'll be able to help with that.
That's true, which also leads to the common mistakes is probably also that, right? Not missing the major deadlines. What else have you seen?
So this kind of goes back to the terminology.
Yes.
Sometimes homeowners choose incorrect protest reasons, right?
Oh.
Again, whether you're doing it online or on a form, there's usually like a dozen or so protest reasons that you can select. You have to check them when you're filing the protest for all the reasons that you're protesting. Now, the two most common reasons that homeowners have to check is incorrect market value. That's when they'll allow you to bring the CMA and look at the sales, etc. And the second one is the unequal appraisal.
Yeah.
Now, what I see quite often is that homeowners will look at, their sales prices or their neighbor's house and say, well, it's unequal appraisal, and they'll only check that, which then they can't bring their sales, right? They won't even look at it because the protest was filed incorrectly.
Oh gosh.
So,
Don't
so
make
that's
this
a that
mistake.
that's a big gotcha. Yeah, and missing the deadline is
I
another big
miss.
one. Is another big one.
Oh gosh. Okay. So ending with where can homeowners go for additional resources, like you said, for assisting, like you said, online, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's probably the best resource for them to go out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the appraisal district website again has a lot of has all the required forms, procedures published on their website. They even have sometimes helpful videos.
Mm-hmm.
They publish their appraisal, sample evidence packets. Oh, that's another important thing that homeowners who are doing it themselves have to keep in mind is the burden of proof for your valuation falls with the appraisal district, which means they have to prove that your appraisal is justified,
Ah,
right? Whatever value they said, they have to be able to prove that through evidence. And you, as a property owner, well, and agents as well, we can request their evidence packet, which shows exactly what they did, how they determined their appraisal, right? So they'll have their sales, their for unequal appraisal argument, they'll have the set of comps that they chose to come up with your value. So very important to request that when you're doing it yourself, especially.
request that from the agents and
From the appraisal district.
appraisal
Yeah.
district. Okay.
Yes.
Because I think they can also get it if they needed to compare, right?
Right.
Okay.
So you kind of have you got to know what you're going up against, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes even just reviewing that evidence packet, maybe they chose a house that is on a premium lot and yours
Yeah.
is not, or maybe it's just too big or too small, right? And so it's important to at least, if nothing else, review that in addition to getting a CMA.
So then, do you say no to some of them if you look at their whatever the appraisal comparisons that they've sent out, and you have a client coming up to you, hey, this is what the appraiser thinks.
Yep.
Do you say that, hey, I can't do anything better, or like I can't help you in that, or do you even try?
So no, so we don't deny services like that. Anybody who can come in and wants to use us, we're more than happy to have them sign up and try. Now, this evidence packet that I mentioned earlier, you can only get it after you file the protest.
Gotcha.
Right? So you can't get it unless
yes.
unless you file the protest. But yeah, with us, they can certainly call us and we can kind of review what their appraisal is and kind of give them an idea what we might be looking at.
Okay.
But of course, at the end, it's going to come down to what our evidence is, what the appraisal district evidence is like, and many other factors. But for signing up, yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Well, ending with our rapid fire, small answers to the questions. Number one, biggest myth about property tax protest.
That the value can increase because of the protest, which is not true. But a lot of homeowners think that might happen if they protest, they can increase their value, right? And that's not the case at all. Your property value cannot go up unless something is discovered by the appraisal district during the protest, right? Maybe you just put in a pool and they missed the permit. Then that can affect your appraisal.
Okay, one thing homeowners should never do when protesting their taxes.
Miss the deadlines or hearings.
Better to protest online or in person?
Really the same. No difference in the outcome.
Okay, most ridiculous reason you've seen a homeowner overassessed? Home overassessed.
Yeah, incomplete construction. Sometimes the appraisal district doesn't have all the information. Like if it's a complete remodel down to the studs, they might not have that information. Or if it's new construction, sometimes they miss the fact that the house wasn't finished. So those are really the biggest ones.
And then I know you talked about best resources for homeowners looking to protest was online.
Yeah, I mean, there's, for someone doing it themselves, again, the appraisal district website, you can look on Google for tips. There's a lot of helpful YouTube videos. Our website, taxprotestmap.com, we have a lot of information as well. We have blogs. We're the only company that actually has a map where you can enter your address and you can see which of your neighbors are protesting and how much they saved.
Wow.
All that information is based on aggregated public records. They can also request a neighborhood report, which will include things like, what percentage of homeowners are protesting? What is the success rate? How many homeowners saved over $1,000? And similar statistics that can kind of help them get an idea if they protest, what could they be looking at?
Wow. That's a lot of information.
Yes.
My last one was number one tip for the first time tax protestant. I know what you're gonna say.
Well, don't miss the
Yes,
deadline.
I knew that.
And be prepared.
And be prepared.
Do your homework. That's the most important thing. Show up with strong evidence, and chances are you'll be successful.
Yes, yes. I know I'm gonna be for sure gonna be trying out your services this year and seeing how that goes for all my properties.
Sure.
But I want to say thank you for coming out and giving us some valuable information on how to protest for property taxes. So, and then if you guys have any questions, comment them below. We'll get those answered.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you so much for
thank you.
having me. This was great. And hopefully this will be helpful to a lot of homeowners who are considering,
Yes.
doing
Try
it
to-
and
Try to save some more money.
exactly.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.